pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just for the record, John Hoskins will not be attending the meeting tonight. He is in Florida or Texas? Texas. So he was going to call in, but his cell service is up. Kind of like Middleton, we're not very good. So basically, there will be some things that we will probably table tonight until the 27th to make a decision on that. So, but we'll move right along here. Call to a public hearing.
Mr. Terrio, he's not here. What do you do with that?
We'll just
wait.
Yeah, we'll have to wait, and then we can go to roll call. Joe Bailey here. John Coyle, yeah. John's not here, obviously. Okay, we'll just go to our normal process. We'll do the signature and actions.
Okay.
Minutes from the selectmen's meeting of 11/6 of this year. Motion to accept as written. Second. All in favor? Aye. Tax warrant.
Okay, so here is the official warrant. You have to sign on each one. So this 1, 2, 3 pages on that one. I don't know if you want to see the actual warrants, but we'll be mailing them out with you.
Needs to be posted online. Laura,
No, that just goes to DRA. Those books.
can we post them online? People want to see them?
Yeah, you can, I guess. Just gives you one number, really,
Yeah.
the total tax warrant.
Okay, we'll finish the signature and we'll go back to your public hearing you wanted, so. Okay, abatements?
Yep, we have. 3 that are gonna get refund checks. And then this one's getting an abatement, but it's gonna be applied to the new, their new bill, because they have taxes owed. So you'll see those refunds coming next week from Gwen.
Okay.
What?
These were her.
No, these are all new. This abatement was heard. You've heard this one? Those are like, they overpaid, like they had a tax credit, from like a veteran credit, and then they paid, so we have to give that back.
Okay.
That's why they're getting refunds.
They won't be going Mr. Hutchins' that. And this one is owed to us.
Nope, this is a refund that they're getting, but it's gonna be credited to their bill because they have delinquent taxes. So they can't get they can't get a refund if they have money owed.
And the next one is power backup pledges.
Okay, so when the power goes out upstairs, the police don't get any internet and stuff because the power backup. So Armand was here last week, and this is what he's telling me we need. And To be honest, I don't know what he's talking about when he tells me, so if anybody does, feel free, but it's like almost $400 for a battery backup.
Yeah.
So,
The problem is we lose our phones too.
yeah, you lose everything.
It's not a good idea for a police department to not have phones, so.
Yeah, how long does your battery backup work? If it's a couple days, it ain't worth it. The other last one was 4. Why don't you put another generator in
We have,
No, we have a generator. What happens is that we have one of those little $80 battery backups.
here? Oh,
You know,
yeah.
It's like that, exactly. So what's happening is that the power will surge, we have a generator, but that won't come back on unless you physically go up there and hit the button. So if nobody's here, so this is like what we have backing up our server, which is like, so it itself will reset itself and stuff.
so in the past, what we've done to save money is buy a battery
little-
backup, a little,
Right.
whatever. And I think we have one upstairs, one down here, one in your office. We have 3 or 4 of them already. That's equal to probably what this is. So-
Yeah, we have one of these that backs up literally our server, but all the rest are these little $80 Staples ones that we, you know. So he physically came out and said, that's what I need, so it is what it is, I guess.
Do we have, you'll probably have a printout for the budget sheet.
Yep, I do, actually.
Do we have any in the computer line left?
Yeah, I think we do.
We have other equipment, all that kind of stuff. It could be something in
Yeah.
there. Do
Yeah,
have-
we can take it right from there,
Okay.
from the new equipment,
How much left?
34.
That's what we need to have in this recommendation.
So when power goes out, you have no phones.
You know,
Yeah.
phones flash like orange and people can't call in or can't call out.
And this
And
will
we
take
don't-
care of that?
I guess I didn't know anything about this until she just said it, but, and the thing is, usually if there's that type of situation, we're out and about, so we're not here to reset things, or we're out taking handling calls.
So that takes care of the phone?
Or,
Yeah,
in this case like that, this one is upstairs, correct?
right, what happens is
Well,
that
what
like all
happens, they
their,
have no access,
all
you
of
can do
their
anything.
stuff is upstairs in the back corner. Ours is not, it's all out of my office. So the police, it comes down through to the bottom floor. So if I'm not, like, if it's Friday and we're closed, nobody knows it's out except them.
Yeah, and this door's locked now, so we
The
don't.
doors are locked and stuff, and so it's kind
Right.
of tough to get in here to reset yourself, so.
They actually came out last time, remember? They had to physically come out here from Aston, wherever they are, and hit the button. Because they're the only ones that knew what it was. And it's happened like twice now, so I'm thinking that it's probably gonna happen again.
So your phones will work off this until the generator kicks in.
It sounds like it from what she's saying.
Right, that won't, once the generator kicks back on, which is instant, I mean, sometimes I don't even lose my computer, I wouldn't even know. But that doesn't reset itself, so until you physically go up there and reset it,
And this will solve it.
yeah, that's automatic.
And this is what Alan says.
That's exactly the thing he sent me right there.
$327.
Isn't it wonderful how computers made our lives so much easier?
We have backups like that for the servers in case the power goes out. Also, it's a surge protector too.
No, match, this is all inclusive.
Yeah. All in one bundle service.
It's in the budget like that, we need it, it's new equipment. I mean, I'd say go ahead and get it. So.
Okay,
Alright, so, instead of going to old business, we'll go back to the public hearing on behalf of Chuck Terrio.
Yeah, but, Steve,
I guess I will speak for him. My name is lawyer. My name is Stephen Hyde.
We don't know you.
I'm also one of his former employees.
Hey, let's go, man.
As you guys know,
I think there's a conflict here.
I'm no longer an employee of this fine town. So there's a conflict. I'm not sure if you have any special manner in which you want to conduct a formal hearing. Obviously,
What's the hearing about? You call it.
well, the hearing is a request for an exemption from the posting of the road, which is permissible for this body to grant any citizen, whether they are a homeowner or a business owner, on an affected area of the road pursuant to statute. So, Mr. Terrio obviously has a homestead on Ridge Road that has been posted in September. as having now an annual 10-ton weight limit. And his request is for an exemption from the posting, which this board can just grant a blanket exemption and exempt him from having to comply with the weight limit, or, as your counsel will tell you if you request an opinion, the statute permits for you folks to grant an exemption with certain conditions. And this town, at least through the planning board previously, made a request, I believe, based on the research or the advice of the road agent, that with regard to the resort project, that all heavy trucks, delivery trucks, service vehicles, construction vehicles would access the property from Kings Highway and over the portion of Ridge Road that runs from Kings Highway to the property, and not beyond that. That was a condition of the approval. It's in the minutes of the planning board. I have a copy with me if you'd like me to read it aloud. The RSA is RSA 231, section 191, and it provides that an exemption shall be granted to any applicant seeking the exemption if the applicant can show that there would be practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship, not undue hardship, but unnecessary hardship, by application of the weight limit as to that person, as to the person requesting the exemption. In this case, it's Mr. Terrio and his businesses. The statute 231-191 goes on to actually define what unnecessary hardship is, and it says, any weight restriction which results in significant interference with a commercial enterprise or land use which existed prior to the posting of the weight limit. So, as far as I understand it, the weight limit was posted in September, and the sign out front, you're shaking your head, I don't know why, but it was posted in September when the sign went up. Regardless of when the ordinance was altered, it was posted in September. And I have photographs of the road before it was posted and after. Mr. Terrio and his businesses registered their vehicles, or the commercial vehicles anyway, in February of this year, which would obviously have the use prior to the posting. So the request is for the exemption pursuant to statute, where the statute permits, and as the statute reads, shall be granted if the unnecessary hardship or, practical difficulty standards are met. Obviously, Mr. Terrio has a permitted use of a construction yard, contractor's yard, on the property that's permitted in the zone. He has 3 vehicles on a 20 or somewhat almost 20 acre lot, and as such, the use is permitted. And apparently there's some change or some difference in the town's ordinance that over a certain number of vehicles there needs to be a permit issued. Under a certain number of vehicles a permit does not need to be issued because it's permitted in the zone. As a result, obviously the request is for the exemption, and the exemption requested is an outright exemption. Again, the board has the opportunity to place some restrictions on it, and according to the New Hampshire Municipal Association's governance and advice on the issue, which I researched as well, the New Hampshire Municipal Association recommends that if restrictions are going to be put on the exemption, that certainly that the restrictions not be something that causes an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty. Obviously, the statute doesn't permit that, but that they perhaps limit the times at which a vehicle could pass, a vehicle over the weight limit could pass over the roadway. I believe that's really aimed at seasonal weight limits, because it talks about before certain hours of the day when the road might heat up and cause the substrate to be weakened, and prior to those hours of the day the road substrate would still be frozen, and therefore the road would not be affected negatively by the overweight truck. The New Hampshire Municipal Association, and I'm sure that the town's attorney would advise the same, also requires that there be some rational basis, some rational nexus between the posting and the use of the road. And in this particular case, as far as I understand, as was I think the plan when I was an employee of the town plans on putting a commercial type facility in the abutting property to Mr. Terrio's, over which portion of the road the town's trucks will travel, regardless of any exemption the town might have from the posting itself. But if the town's vehicles, laden with sand and salt and plows and everything else, obviously exceed the limit imposed by the town's going to need to have some rational basis for limiting a private and/or commercial use of a citizen when it permits the same use of the same portion of the road for the town. That's something that hopefully we don't need to litigate, but obviously there has to be a rational basis between the posting of the road and the reasons for posting the road. And I think that the statute is well written by the legislature because it gives the board the ability to exempt certain uses and, like I said, put conditions on that. If the town would prefer that the area after the subject property and towards New Portsmouth Road not have heavy truck traffic on it for whatever reason, assuming there's a rational basis for that reason, then the statute gives you folks the ability to put conditions on the exemption granted to Mr. Terrio. So, unless you have any questions,
I got a question.
Sure.
Where'd you come up with permitting? Did you look into the definitions, what permitted is,
in regard to what, sir?
into the planning board? Permitted does not mean you have to get a permit. It means you are permitted to use that use. Look the definition up.
That's correct. When you are permitted to have a certain use in a zone,
Doesn't mean you get a permit.
No,
You
it-
are permitted to.
right? You don't need a permit if you're permitted by
Okay?
ordinance.
And his situation, I asked him that night, do you have 3 construction vehicles and a plow truck? Is that what you're gonna keep there? He said, yes. Okay? In that situation, he's fine, he don't need any. So, but if he goes for more, he better come in before the planning board and get that, to go ahead and say, hey, I'm a construction business down here, so we can start the process of moving things along and let the abutters know that they're down there. But right now, he don't have to, he's got 3 vehicles and what they call a plow truck or something else. And that's in our regulations, because I just went over this a week ago with him. And I also went over a week ago not to go on that road out there because it's a 10-ton limit. That was me telling him, because I knew the police have been told to check him out. Okay? So, in our thing, when John was on board, yes, we did not put a stipulation where we said, okay, you gotta come up and down, because I was there during that period.
Are you speaking of the approvals?
Golf carts.
Yep.
Okay? We said we'd go ahead and let you come up and down that way, but at any time during the way, we can also ask for a bond.
Yes, you can.
So if he wants to come up and down that road, the town can go out and say, fine, you can use that road, but you're gonna bond yourself.
Yeah, and the statute permits the town to impose that as a condition as well.
Okay, so those are the things that we talked about last week.
I'm not sure how that's germane to the application.
Well,
made
you're
here.
sitting there saying he's okay to do this, he's okay to do this. Yeah, he is. Under the statute for the planning board, we have to send him before the zoning board because he asked for relief. Okay, he did not have, planning board does not give relief, zoning board gives relief.
He didn't ask for relief from the zoning ordinance.
He asked, yeah, he said he wanted to be able to come up and down that road with his vehicles. We do not, planning board does not grant that. The only one who does is the zoning board,
Okay.
okay?
My understanding, and I wasn't at the meeting that you're speaking of, is that Mr. Terrio was instructed to go to the planning board meeting.
He did come.
And to discuss the use that he has been putting the property to prior to the posting of the road.
He
He did that, and I was told at that point he was instructed to come to this meeting.
No, I told him at that meeting that the planning board does not grant relief. He would have to go before the zoning board to get relief on that, going out there to use that road.
Okay, and the statute says that the town can do that, doesn't designate that the zoning board has to do that, which is why the application was made
But
to.
the town can
the Board
also
of
turn
Selectmen.
around and say, hey, look, we wanna put a bond on that road.
Yes, you can. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
condition you can put on that, yeah.
So,
Keeping in mind that the attachment of a condition, and the requirement of a bond, if it is such that the request for the bond is unreasonable and would create an unnecessary hardship, then that's something that Mr. Terry obviously can choose to appeal to the Superior Court, and if the court says it's unreasonable or it creates an unnecessary hardship, then the bond would not be required, and
Well,
have a court order saying he can use that.
As being a selectman from before, whenever we had logging trucks coming up down those roads, we know what kind of bonds we put on those roads. So all these selectmen have to do is go back in to find out what, and I would assume those logging trucks weigh a little bit more than what his.
And I was just going to say, I'd like for the record to reflect that Mr. Terry doesn't have a logging operation.
Okay?
And the record should also reflect that Mr. Terrio doesn't carry any material in his trucks to and from the yard.
That's questionable.
Well, during public comment, if you want to make a comment, you certainly can do so, but
well, we could open this up after we hear from
As
anybody.
far as
I
the
wouldn't wanna
applicant is
go back and
concerned,
forth, nip it in the bud and talk about it now.
as far as the applicant is concerned, the trucks leave the yard, generally speaking, empty, and return to the yard, generally speaking, empty, because they've done the work for the day. They're just stored here overnight, so they're not. Now, obviously, when it comes to the resort and the bringing in or removal of aggregate, that's something completely and totally different. That has nothing to do with the home occupation that the applicant currently maintains. That has to do with an already approved project and an already approved use of the road to undertake and complete that project. So I guess while we're at it, since it's all generally the same person, even though they're separate legal entities that are undertaking different activities, there Mr. Terrio would request the exemption to apply, obviously, to the already approved project down there that sets limits on where the trucks may come and go. So the posting of the road permanently would then interfere with an already approved use of that land that already contemplated heavy equipment going over the road to and from that project during the construction, and then thereafter. I believe that the town's condition, and this is in the notice of planning board approval from April 10, 2014, and it reads, construction, service, and delivery vehicles are required to access the site from the west via Route 153 and Kings Highway, rather than from the east. So the planning board obviously contemplated at the time, and whether they contemplated it or not, it's in the conditional approval, that the town is permitting construction, service, and, I've already forgot one I just read. Construction, service, and maintenance, I believe it says. Delivery, and maintenance vehicles to pass and repass over the now posted roadway for the purposes of construction and then later service of the resort. So, that entity should be granted as an approved applicant, the same exemption that Mr. Terry was requesting tonight for Ken Brothers Construction.
And the remaining of the stuff to do with the runway too, has to be finished.
Right, I mean, all the applications that have already been approved that need to be completed, I mean, those still remain
So
open.
if I remember, we're going back here, and it's gonna be a stretch. All this stuff was done, the golf court, the runway, all the prior projects and stuff like that. We were, if I remember right, we were told that that was not gonna be a fully used road, that he was going to build an alternate road off of either 153 or off Kings Highway to do all that heavy construction stuff.
No,
Am I wrong in saying that? Because, I mean, I thought at one point you were gonna have a road right down to Todd's Collision
there's a-
to access that.
Well, there's an
What?
emergency access road.
Well,
That's
that's,
a gated road, yeah.
okay, so you were going to do that to provide, to take a lot of the burden off of this road, so it wouldn't be a problem.
No, it's a gated for the fire and police if there was an accident that they had to get into the resort.
Okay, so it's an access point, if they had to get in, it could be
Right,
passed
it was
upon
for
and used.
emergencies, yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't put a gate on it, there's a road in and out, correct? I mean, I know part of the thing is, yeah, you say all these trucks are registered here. 3 are allowed now, but anything more than that, he has to be a construction site. How many vehicles does he have registered here? It's more than 3.
Yeah, not stored here though, the other
they're registered here, that means they can be stored here anytime you decide to bring them in,
They
correct?
couldn't, yeah, and he-
Okay, so how many do you
that's
have?
what he
Eight?
said.
How
That's
many
what
have,
he
8, 9?
No,
How many?
Last week he had 5.
yeah,
Okay, so,
Now we got
so
3.
already we get,
no, 2 are stay at the
So,
driver's house,
the,
one in
the way,
Rochester, and one
the
in
real
South.
way that should be going on, he went to the planning board because he's rural residential on that house site.
Mhm.
Okay? He has to have relief from that, so he has to go to the zoning board to change that to, or have a home-based business. Home-based business is a certain amount, is what you can do, and can't do, all right? So, because you're bigger than a home-based business, the step you have to do is go to the zoning board and ask for them to give you an exemption from being a residential to a commercial business down there, because that's a commercial business.
If he wants to store more than 3 vehicles at any one time,
Okay,
that's correct.
so, okay, so having said that, once you weigh in with them, then it comes to the board of selectmen to make the final decision. Because we have to take what they say, what the zoning board says, to make an informed decision.
If I may though, if Mr. Terry does not want to store more than 3 motor vehicles, heavy equipment vehicles, anything that's over 10 tons, if he doesn't want to store more than 3 of those at any one time at 120 Ridge Road, then he doesn't need to go to the planning board for
It's
anything, or
not,
the zoning board for anything.
that's a requirement of the road posting and stuff, absolutely. I mean, you can run a home-based business, you have to go to the planning board and let them do it. I mean, I had to do it, my wife done it. We had Doug Kennel up here, and I mean, you have to do the site plan, all of it. You have to do that. So, I mean, the new regulations, it's just filling out the paperwork and doing it. No one's trying to tie your hands here, but we're going to do it the right way, and, just because it's, the roads have always been, since 80-something, a 10-ton weight limit.
Not necessarily, that was changed, they made it no through trucking, we had a meeting, you were on the board, and you took the signs down, because I think it was posted before that, wasn't
It
it?
was posted since 1993
Yeah.
it was posted. Even when they did all the sign change, the ordinance
Right.
never got changed, so that's why we didn't have to have another
they
meeting to
took
put the
the-
signs back up.
Posting down, and that's what the law states is when it's posted, not what the ordinance is. You have to be clear on what you're discussing. The RSA is very clear on when you put that sign up, or if an ordinance is in a book somewhere. There's 2 totally separate things. You can have ordinance in the book, and you change it to no through trucking, because Jimmy and I came and sat here, and he wanted to change it, and it was changed, I was at the meeting, and they changed it to no through trucking, and took those signs down, so then it wasn't posted. Whatever your ordinance says is different from what am I wrong or right?
No, but I again, what you're talking about, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, Joe, but
No, it's fine.
you're saying that Mr. Terrio, if he wants to have more than 3 vehicles parked on the property at any one time, that he needs to go to the zoning board for a home-based
I think it's a
business.
planning book.
Commercial.
Okay,
Planning book.
if he doesn't, as we've just heard, he doesn't need any permit at all. It is a permitted use. To have 3 or fewer is a permitted use. He doesn't need anyone's permission at all for that.
I don't say he does.
Well, you said that he had to go to the ZBA and get
If he
relief
wants
from
to
them.
store
and then
more than that.
Right, fine, and if he doesn't, then he doesn't need anyone's permission to
He
store more than that.
goes before the planning board and asks for a permit.
Okay, so what he's asking for from the Board of Selectmen is the exemption that you guys are able to grant him under the statute. So I don't see where he needs to go anywhere else before he gets the relief that he's requesting from you folks, that the statute's pretty clear where it says shall be granted. I mean, I'm not making it up, I'm reading it. I can read it to you verbatim if you like. It says that it shall be granted when the applicant can show that it is an unnecessary hardship, or, as I read earlier, a practical difficulty. I think it goes without saying there's a practical
My
difficulty.
question is, the unnecessary hardship is for a construction vehicles that are not supposed to be on site.
No. If he has 3 or fewer, it's permitted in the zone.
So that he has more than 3.
I have 2 drivers that keep
Okay.
it. One stays in Somersworth and one stays in Barrington.
Is that now, but that's not during the summer.
No, they
What
do.
difference does it make when it is? If you're saying you give him an exemption for up to 3 vehicles parked at the yard, unless he gets a permit to have more than 3,
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say he's getting exemptions. I mean, to be honest with you, you're an attorney and I respect that. I'm not, so I'm not gonna say more than what I already have without us talking to him.
I would strongly
So-
recommend that the town get a legal opinion from their attorneys, because that's what the statute says.
So, and
we
I'm not
can
gonna argue the
avoid
statute.
we can avoid a ton of expense in litigation,
Yeah.
and just have you guys get a legal opinion from the town's council as to what the statute permits and what it requires. And when the legislature uses words like shall grant an exemption,
Legislature.
but for you to say that he has to go to a different board to get relief from an ordinance that he hasn't sought relief from, and he's willing to comply with the three or fewer vehicles that are over the weight limit, then it makes no sense that he would have to get that
I'm not
permission.
saying we gave him an exemption over the weight limit stuff. That's not what I'm saying.
No, that's why we're here. We're requesting that
Yeah, but
exemption.
you just said we already gave him that exemption for three of them over the weight limit.
No, I'm saying if he's seeking it for 3 or fewer, then he doesn't need to go anywhere else.
As long as they're under the weight limit, not over the weight limit, is what you just said.
No, he's telling you that he doesn't need a business thing if he has 3 or less vehicles. That's what he's telling you.
It's not gonna hurt.
It is in the plan,
Okay.
like 3 or less, you don't have to have.
So he can legally take 3 construction vehicles over a posted weight limit road and run them up that road as long as he has 3 or less.
No.
No.
If you
You
grant
give
him the
permission.
exemption permitted by statute.
Am I off base here, John?
Okay, the business thing is where you're getting confused.
Okay.
So we're saying he has to go get a construction business thing through the planning board, like to get his, okay. But he's saying that he does not need a business license if he has 3 or less vehicles. Not that he can pass on the thing, but he can have the business that you can grant him permission to pass on the road, because he doesn't have the business. That's what he's telling you. Am I right?
But you
Because-
still as the selectman can go and put a stipulation on it for bonding that road.
And the only difference is if Mr. Terrio gets a permit to have more than 3 vehicles there, then the exemption would be
You're gonna
for,
have to start the process.
it would be for whatever vehicles he has there. He's now been given the ability to bring more than 3 vehicles on the property. If he seeks and has been granted that permit under the ordinance, and as such, if the company's been granted the exemption to bring the trucks over the road, then it applies to all the trucks that go over the road. You're not gonna know which given vehicle is gonna be there. I mean, he might have a trailer, which is a separately registered vehicle from a tractor, but that's not a vehicle, it's not a motor vehicle, it's just a registered implement. You know, he might have a tractor that rides on a trailer, like literally a tractor with a bucket on it that rides on a trailer. That doesn't exceed the weight limit. So I mean, he can have so many commercial vehicles as the ordinance permits there, but in this case, the ones that are over the weight limit has to be 3 or fewer. So, I guess I don't fully understand where you're getting hung up, but I mean the statute's clear. Like I said at the beginning, it's 231-191, and I just would like for the record to reflect that the statute uses the word shall grant an exemption when either, not both, when either of those criteria are met, that there's a practical difficulty, which I think it's obvious. It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway for the record, that a person having a small business where they have heavy equipment that exceeds 10 tons, and having those pieces of equipment stored at their home, and then the road is posted. Obviously, the posting of the road to 10 tons or fewer creates a practical difficulty. And the unnecessary hardship is defined by statute, as I read earlier, and it includes unnecessary hardship shall include any weight restriction which results in a significant interference with a commercial enterprise or land use. So whether it's 3 or more, which is commercial enterprise, or 3 or fewer, which is land use, permitted in the zone, which existed prior to the posting of the weight restriction. And the weight restriction was posted in September, and this use began in February or before. So I just use February as a reference point because that's when they were registered with this town. So I'm not exactly sure. Mr. Turner might be able to recall at some point when exactly they first started being stored there and how many there were. I mean, I can recall I started working here in 2016, I think, and there were dump trucks and such out there then that were registered, and they were a heck of a lot. There were rock trucks out there, a heck of a lot bigger than they are now. Those came over the road on a low bed. I'm assuming that was well in excess of 10 tons. So that's all I have for the record. So if you have any questions, certainly.
Do you have any information on the access road that,
I don't see that anywhere in again, that's a planning board approval. I don't see anything about an access road in this. I haven't reviewed it completely line by line. Obviously, I got to the issue at paragraph 11. Again, I'm reading from the April 10, 2014 Notice of Planning Board Approval, and this is a conditional approval, and then I'm reading from the conditions at paragraph 11 where it says, the anticipated increase in a specific type of traffic is of a concern as to the condition of Ridge Road, easterly from the site towards New Portsmouth Road. So
now, when is that dated?
2014, April 10th of
So from
2014.
14 through 16, there has been no discussion in record that you found that there will be an access road either off of Kings Highway 153?
I haven't researched the entirety of the town's record as to any discussions with regard to an access road. Tonight's actually the first time I've heard about an access road that was supposed to be off
Is
of...
there, may I address your
Actually,
comment?
let me clarify. The access road is supposed to be off of 153 or off of Kings Highway?
That I'm not too sure, I was asking you.
I don't know. I don't believe that the property fronts on 153 at all, so I don't know how that would...
Can we ask your client?
It didn't then, but it does now, but it didn't, the access road you're talking about, that we know about, is the one down here by Todd's Auto Body.
Right.
And now Chuck's saying that was just gonna be for firefighting apparatus, I don't remember hearing that at that meeting,
But
but
it-
that's what they're saying now.
But if there could be an access road to alleviate all this problem on Ridge Road, could that be done?
Well, it needs some major wetlands to cross. There's like 2 big wetlands that need to be crossed. That was the issue with coming off of
Do
153.
you have documentation from the state stating that?
Well, we have the approved plan shows where there's big wetlands crossings.
And there's
They have
no way
to be.
around that?
No, you could request a crossing. If the state, if DES permits it, then, you know, perhaps. I mean, you're asking me to answer a question that has a number of variables that are outside of my control, Mr. Turner's control, your control, and they lie in some regard with the state. So, is it possible to put the access road in that you're talking about? I obviously, before advising my client, would want to have significantly more information on an access road that I've not heard about before tonight. But then again, I have been at very few of these meetings, if any, from Mr. Terrio, so,
No, I mean, counsel, no disrespect, but if I get a building permit to add windows to my home, I can look at 36 inch, 38 inch, or 40 inch. What I give the town is these are the windows sizes I'm putting in. In the past, have you come across any plans where you have an access road besides Ridge Road?
I have not seen that, no.
Has your client ever submitted plans where there's an access road?
I don't know, but in all fairness, I didn't represent Mr. Terrio the entire time I was an employee of the town, which was approximately 6 years, because of the obvious conflict. So I don't know, I wasn't involved as his counsel for all of the approval period. This, like I said, this is from 2014. I continued to be an employee of this town for 2 years after that, so I wouldn't have had anything to do with that. So I personally don't know the answer to that question.
In 2014, when that was granted, the object of the access road was for fire, and that was up here. That was the object of the access road.
Okay, is that in this?
And that's all we approved it for, was saying, Chuck, you gotta bring a second way in there so we can go ahead, in case we gotta get fire vehicles in there to come in that, to get into that thing. Never considered as a road going back and forth, just a road coming in.
I guess there's the answer to your question based on the town's own.
Thank you, counsel.
Anything else?
Appreciate it. So, up on, we have to talk with Attorney Mark.
If he goes, he's not registered as a business. That's one thing the attorney, as far as I'm concerned, got wrong. He's not a business. He's just an individual running trucks and back and forth. That's under that 3 thing. The minute he starts going over the 3 limit, he has to come before the planning board and start the work, and he knows the work that we have to start to register him as a business on there. His business, in a rural residential area, can be there under the stipulations. If he wants it a business, he don't want it a business, he just wants to park his trucks on. So he's fine. But we cannot say, you got relief on that 10-ton road. okay? That's not our thing as a planning board. That's why I told him that night, you should go before the zoning board and get that relief.
They don't give you relief either.
No, it's just like,
But
right,
as,
so you don't know what
but
you're talking
as the way, you don't have to go before the zoning board the way the attorney is saying, you guys can grant them relief. Your thing, or if you wanna be more technical about it, you're out to protect that road is the bonding. Say, sure, Chuck, you can go back and forth over it, but we're gonna bond it. Any damage is done to it, you're paying for it. Because as it comes down to it, if Rick goes back and forth over that road and destroys that road with his vehicles, of course, we pay for it. And we, as town people, know we pay for it. So, that's why we basically grant him the okay to go back and forth over that 10-ton road. And he has to anyways, because he gotta plow it. So, now it's in your ball,
If I can just maybe clarify something with regard to the ZBA versus Board of Selectmen. The statute, again, it's 231-191, starts off and it says, the governing body of a municipality may establish maximum weight limits, seasonal or otherwise, which are more restrictive than the limits set forth in RSA 266:17 through 26 for a Class 4, Class 5, or Class 6 highway. So, my understanding is that this body amended the regulation with regard to the posting of the weight limits. Is that not correct?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so if this body is the one under the statute that set the weight limit,
We did.
then underneath it is, this is the body to whom he must apply. We could apply to the zoning board, quite frankly, I think the zoning board's council, if it's different from the Board of Selectmen's council, would issue an opinion to the zoning board rejecting the application because it wasn't filed with the right body. But that's just how it's done in other towns. If you're applying to the wrong body for something and they can't give you that relief, generally speaking, council indicates that they don't reject the application, they just can't hear it because they don't have the authority under the statute to do so.
Okay. Any more questions or comments?
Thank you. Could we have someone read the definition in the zoning ordinance of what a home business is, what a home contractor office is?
It's Article 26.
I think it's 26.
Article 26.
No, the definition.
I want the
In
definition
36,
first, yeah.
okay. Of a home,
Business and a
Based
home
contractor
contractor's
yard?
office, yes.
there you go. Let's move.
Home-based contractor yard, an area and/or building used to store operable construction equipment, trucks, construction supplies, building equipment, and raw materials for an individual or for a contractor engaged in one or more building or other construction business, including but not limited to plumbing, electrical, structural, finish, demolition, transportation, masonry, excavating, landscaping, or other construction work. Normal maintenance of equipment is allowed in a contractor yard. The definition of a home-based contractor yard shall not apply to those incidences where materials are to be used for the improvement of the property on which the materials are stored, provided stored materials are used on-site or removed from the site within 180 days of delivery. The building inspector and code enforcement officer are authorized to extend the 180-day limit. For the purpose of this definition, the following are not considered home-based contractor yards, but are considered an accessory use on a parcel where there is an existing residential use and the equipment described below is owned and operated by an occupant of the residence. Number one operational pickup truck and associated plow, trailer, and similar equipment. Or, number two, up to 3 pieces of operational construction-related vehicles or equipment. parentheses, such accessory use is allowed and does not require registration with the code enforcement officer. For the purpose of this definition, the following are not considered home-based contractor yards and therefore are not permitted by this article. Number one, a junkyard as defined by state statute. 2, equipment or materials used for blasting. And then the next one, home business, this is short. Accessory use of a professional or service character that has been customarily carried out in the home and conducted within the dwelling by the residents thereof, which is clearly secondary to the dwelling use of living purposes and does not change the character thereof.
Could you read 5A, please?
From 22,
From the what?
from 22. You-
From the ordinance. It has to do with rural residential.
Starts here.
Article 5A, base zoning district uses. A, rural residential district. Number 1, permitted uses. A, single-family houses. B, two-family houses. C, farms and agricultural operations. D, sale of products that are raised, produced, and processed on the premises, provided that the seasonal roadside stands must be set back at least 25 feet from the public road. Year-round permanent structures for sale of products must receive site plan approval from the planning board. E, essential services. Last one, F, back lots are allowed providing they have 5 acres of area in the body of the lot, which minimum area does not include the area of the neck or strip of land which provides frontage access. Back lots must have at least 50 feet of frontage on a town-approved and accepted road.
Keep going.
Basically, number 4, you wanna skip this stuff, with
Yeah.
accessory uses,
Okay.
none of that sentence.
Number 4, special exemptions. Provided they meet the following criteria with the approval of the Board of Adjustment and receive a site plan approval of the planning board. A, cemeteries must provide their sole access is not through a local residential street. B, churches and other buildings for the purpose of religious worship, providing they are located adjacent to the arterial or collector street. C, institutions for higher education, providing that they are located adjacent to an arterial street. D, group nursery schools or group daycare center, provided they are located adjacent to a collector street. As used here, daycare centers shall mean a group daycare center for the care and supervision of more than 12 children, as defined by the state of New Hampshire. 1, group child center for the care of 13 or more children. 2, group daycare nursery, care of 5 or more, under 3. 3, family group daycare as a home business in Middleton for the care of 7 to 12 children. E, police and fire stations, provided they are located adjacent to an arterial street. F, public and parochial schools, provided they are located adjacent to an arterial street. G, contractors' offices and their storage yard, provided. Number 1, they are located adjacent to an arterial street. No unscreened outside storage is permitted within 300 feet of the neighboring houses. All buildings are set back to at least 100 feet from the road. No parking of trucks or storage of equipment shall be permitted within the front yard. All parking and storage shall be screened from neighboring views or to be more than 300 feet from the nearest neighboring house. A site plan is approved by the planning board, generally showing the extent of use. Minimum site size is 5 acres. Sure.
Can I make one more observation?
Yes.
In my view, as past chairman of the planning board, Counselor is correct in terms of this particular situation. The planning board, on Mr. Terrio's request for a relief on the road has nothing to do with the planning board or the zoning board, nothing. The zoning board is responsible, at least to my knowledge, for land use ordinances only. The town is responsible for town ordinances such as speed limits.
Noise violations.
What's that?
Noise violations.
Noise violations, weight limits, a variety of trash, how that's picked up, how that's stored, where you can put it, so forth and so on. So the planning board in this particular, at least in my view, in this particular scenario here, has nothing to do with the planning board whatsoever. It has to do with his request for a variance on the weight limit, and that's in the hands of the Board of Selectmen. That's my view of the situation.
And as the planning board chair before John, I concur.
And that's what I was saying, because I'm the planning board chair. Well, vice chair still. So,
Thank you, John. Thank you, Linda.
We'll reach out to our legal counsel. And without John being
You
here.
want me to just plan on coming to the next meeting again? We'll just continue this to the next meeting? Like you do like planning board, you just
We're not meeting
continue
next Monday,
to the following?
the following one, but
So we'll just plan on that. That'll be enough time for you guys to get?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that'd be
Absolutely.
great. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll go to public meeting. We can move on.
Yeah, where you guys think you're going? You guys stick around for the rest of the meeting and hang out? Yeah.
Oh, he's just going up the street. You go back to Dover? Steve?
What's that?
You said go to Dover, you going
Yeah,
down?
no, I'm going back to Dover.
Right?
Yeah.
Not that far.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, under old business, we'll go to the Old Town Hall update, Mr. John Mullins.
No, I don't. I'm sorry? Oh, my turn? Okay. Your turn. Thank you. I'm here to just give the board.
Thank you, sure, we'll move on to,
Okay, fine.
salt shed update?
no, go ahead.
Just to kind of give you an update on the Old Town Hall restoration and where we're at. Obviously, the end of the tunnel is coming close because we have a commitment from the general contractor to be done by December, or at least for the Christmas party, which is December
Third.
the 3rd. Oh, boy.
3 weeks, John.
That's short. That's gonna be tough. But let me give you an update where we are. Obviously, the bathrooms and that hallway is done except for some painting and putting up some signs on the restrooms and that kind of stuff. We have to still yet install some fans in the bathroom. There seems to be some discussion about what we're gonna put in there, but that will be resolved. And the countertop on the cabinets that were installed is installed now. I just need to do a little more sanding and I'll be able to stain it and then varnish it, so that will be done. The main hall the carpentry is done except for a couple trim pieces and the access staircase that I'll talk about in a minute. It's all been enclosed. We have a couple trim pieces. We also yet have to put in a new door, a new entrance door. That one is, that was in the plan, to put a new entrance door. As far as the chapel itself is pretty much, not pretty much, it is completed except for the second egress. Ceilings are all been done, they've all been painted. The murals have been stabilized and in some cases cleaned up. We still have work, a little bit of work yet to do, but that won't be done until the spring. On the front and the back of the chapel needs to be cleaned up a little bit. There's some animal debris, if you will, on the walls that we felt we could clean up. So other than that, and they have to do some little carpentry on some of the pews. It's minimal because when we leveled the floor, if you will, if you recall, you've been in there, the floor up there was like this. It is now, it's not totally level, but it's pretty much. So some of the doors got a little out of whack, so they have to fix that. We also have to finish the electrical up there. The chandelier is being refurbished and rewired. That should be done in a week or so, and we can hang that. What's happening to that will be completely rewired, new bulbs and new globes, cleaned up. That particular chandelier was in pristine condition. It was originally an old kerosene lantern that was converted, and there wasn't hardly anything missing on that, so it's a real treasure. So when it gets hung up there, it'll look beautiful. As far as the kitchen is concerned, the ceiling has been stabilized and fixed along with the rafters in the building, or in the ceiling. They were pretty bad, so they shored them up, and they shored up the roof with supporting J timbers or angle timbers. And it has been ready for plastering, as has the stage, and as has the storage room. I don't know why they did that, but that's ready to be plastered. The last big obstacle, besides the exterior, and the exterior is basically cosmetic, putting some of the siding back on, buttoning up some of the trim that's on the east side, or the west side, where the auxiliary room is. I'll get to that in a second. So the biggest thing is we had the state from Division of Natural Resources and Historic, along with L-CHIP, come up on Thursday to meet with Cheryl Kimball, who is chairman of the Heritage Commission, myself, and Steve Bedard, who is the general contractor on the job, to discuss stair options. And we presented two options, and they looked at that, and they've taken that under advisement, and both options involve some removal of either a bench up in the chapel, or maybe cutting some of the pews in half. So they have to decide which way that they want to go. So there's pros and cons. One option takes more of the historical pews away. Doesn't mean we're throwing them away. The plan on that particular one, if we had to cut, and this is to give you headroom and everything else to go down to meet code, we would probably take half of the pew and move it to the other side, and that would kind of make that room look symmetrical. Another way would be, the second option would be to just have to remove the bench behind the two pews on the side. We should know in a week or so what their recommendation is, and then we can move forward with the plan. The auxiliary room, or the extra room over there, is right now so full of stuff we can't even get into it, but it just needs basically some patching of some of the beadboard, which we have enough beadboard, old beadboard and new beadboard, to patch that up. And all we need to do is trim up the window, or retrim it, retrim the door, no big deal, and put in a new door. And then all we're going to do, it's been, the receptacles are not in, but it's been wired. We have to put a chandelier up, or a central light, which we will do. And all we're going to do to the walls is just wipe it down with denatured alcohol to clean all the dirt and residue off, and that's it. some of the virgin pine that we're gonna put in there. I had today Benjamin Moore match the stain based on a piece that I had, and it's pretty darn perfect. So you'll see it, but it'll be better. We have electrical work yet to be done to finish up, and pretty much most of it is wired in. He just starts to have to hook up the circuits. I did find, I called the electrician to come in to number one, re-hook up the circuit for the Christmas tree lights, which he said he would do this week. And I also noticed, before we had this real cold weather, we have a heat tape in there running down on the well pump pipe. That particular circuit was not hot. So I put an extension cord, which is running now, which is fine. But I told him that we wanted that hooked up when he comes up this week, to put it on a switch.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there on a very violated code way, just a metal receptacle box. The outside, again, that's pretty much it.
What about the front entryway?
The front entryway, I have to talk to Steve Bedard in terms of exactly what he's going to do. We have talked about probably going to look similar, and we have to also take into consideration an ADA ramp, whether it's coming this way or coming on the side. We had an ADA ramp before, theoretically, that was from the front. So that's probably the way we're going to go. The other thing that needs to be, there's a couple other things that I want to point out. Joe, you mentioned about somebody that you might have in mind that could install the air conditioner. Okay, you need to give me his name, because we need to get that out of there and placed in the back. He doesn't necessarily have to hook it up, although run the lines. And I want to make sure that when we place the air conditioning unit, that it is safe there, if you know what I mean. Okay. The other thing is, the Heritage Commission wants to get started as soon as possible, and our only problem right now is the storage area. We have to wait till they plaster that ceiling. I don't know when that's going to happen yet. As soon as that's done, there was shelving in there, I guess, at one time.
Yeah, it was just some wood thrown together. I mean,
Okay, so we need to put shelving back in there so we can start emptying the trailer. I will empty all the old books, all the old RSA books that were up in the corner. The archives agreed to take those no matter what condition I run a year ago. So I have to contact them again. We'll start getting those out. So then I would like at some time to start going through that trailer over there to see what can be moved out, thrown out, given away, whatever. There are a lot of books in there that were from the previous book exchange in there. That's something that's going to have to be decided what to do. So I'm pretty confident we're going to, we will meet that deadline as promised. There's a lot of things that got to happen, but they can happen quick, and there's not much. The biggest thing will be cleaning up the place and washing the walls and painting. But we have volunteers from the Old Home Association. They've painted that place before, and they'll come in and they'll do that in 2 or 3 days, and we'll be ready to go. So that's where we're at.
Regarding the books from the lending library that they had in there, Tony and I have a basement where we'll transport and store all the library collection in our basement until the town determines what they'd like to do with those.
Great.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
If you just let us know when you're doing it, we'll bring our truck over and
You let
make
me
as many
know,
trips.
and you're welcome to it. They're all in the front there. There's nothing really in the back. So we're good. All
We'll
right.
start that fairly soon then.
You can do it tomorrow if you'd like.
I don't know about that.
I'll be up there most of this week. So
Okay.
okay, that's it.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Where's the rest of my pew?
All right,
Pew.
salt shed update. Would that be Rick?
Sure.
Wasn't supposed to be, but I guess I can tell you, the roof's on it. Just gonna put a top on there now. The guy worked all weekend on it, he did an awesome job. Everything's secured right down to, he had about 6 nails left to go before I had to push him out of the way to get the salt out today, so. Worked out pretty well. He done an awesome job all
Money
weekend.
well spent then.
Definitely. It's secured down now. If you have to pull the telephone poles out to take the roof off now, he really secured it nice. Cramped it up a little bit on the top, but we just gotta pay attention with it with the loader, that's all. And he'll be back to put the top on probably Wednesday. I'm gonna try to let it kind of dry out a little bit up there before he just goes over the top over it. But other than that, we're good to
Is that all
go.
he has to do, Rick, is put the tarp on?
That's it now, yeah. So we
Should
skipped.
be good,
Yes, ask.
quick.
He did a remarkable job working over there. Pretty much he had his son with him 2 days, and the other day he was by himself. Today he was all by himself. Almost went home because it started to get just a little bit too wet, but decided he wanted to get all the plywood on. He stayed right there, and he's got it to just put the top on. And he wanted to know if Wednesday was fine with me, and it's covered, so we're in good shape.
Well, I tell you, he probably saved us it cost us what, $4,200 to do that?
Right,
Right about. Probably saved that much just in the salt.
yeah. If it would've kept getting wet, we'd already lost probably about a couple grand's worth of salt during that rainstorm, but the whole pile settled down. And now we've got the old salt broke up, so we've used some salts. Now I can actually replace with new salt now, so I know it's not gonna get soaked again, so. It worked out well. We're on schedule again over there. That was something we were kinda worried about, but the guy pulled it off for us, so.
3 weeks turned into 1 week.
Right.
Well, the biggest thing, he knew the value of what we were losing, so he probably stepped up his game to get it done for us too, so. And
Worked all weekend, so.
that's cool. All right, Microsoft for the 3 laptops, is that something we want to decide on, or
Well, I spoke to Armon and they're suggesting that
by new?
a whole new kind of way of looking at things.
I'm sure.
So some of us have Outlook, some of us don't. Some of us have to use webmail, which literally if you log in too many times incorrectly, it freezes out everybody. So he suggested most of us are on 2010, which in 19 will be non-existent, I guess. They only do 3 at a time, and when the last one is like, it gets bumped out. So by 19 there won't be any good. It won't be supported.
The police aren't on Microsoft, huh?
Yeah, they are.
They are?
I've looked at all of the computers. The 3 laptops don't have anything. So he's suggesting that we start with, it's a monthly plan. Like, if everybody gets email, it's like $4 per Gmail account. And then if you want the Outlook, it goes up to like $12. He's suggesting doing that with these 3 to start until we can, instead of buying the $300 program per piece, per computer.
300 per computer.
It was $229 per computer. This would be like $12 or $13 a month per computer. But they'd get the email and the Word for now, and then
How many computers do we have?
altogether,
Yeah.
21?
So this would only, but this only affects those 3.
3 until the others expire. And then we look at like the next budget to get the people that don't have email, then we can just get them email for like the $4 a month. You're looking, when you finally get everybody on there, it's like $3 grand a year or $4 grand a year for everything, for everybody to have what they would need. But that's not till 19.
2019.
And that's for 1 year.
It's every year.
That's 1 year.
So,
Well, if you get Office, it's $229 per computer. That's per license.
No, but I'm just saying, that's just.
Yeah, it is a lot. But that, I mean, that's just something to look forward to when that happens. But I mean, just to get these, otherwise these 3 are just gonna sit, and they're, the people that need them are, I mean, it's gonna be,
probably we spent some good money on those damn things there.
oh, those computers are probably good $600-700 a piece right now, that we put into them. For them to just sit on them.
Is this a contract that we have to sign and we're bound to it, or is it a month-to-month thing that we can get out of?
I believe it's a month-to-month thing through Microsoft.
Can we get
Something
out?
like I would just go online and, yeah,
You being the administrator, you can
Right.
add and delete users.
Right.
Okay.
That's what we have at work,
yeah.
as new employees.
So I hate to see these things sitting here doing absolutely nothing, so I would,
So I'm thinking, I mean, even if it's 12, I mean, that's what, $36 for the next 2 months or 3, you know, before we can rebudget and think about, at least it gets them off the shelf.
They're your computers, does all the computers need to have Word, Excel, email?
These are the 3 laptops that aren't theirs anymore.
Yeah, we weren't using them, so we gave them back to the town.
That's right.
But as far as like my emails, You'd be amazed at the important stuff that the AG send me, that I get from the governor on my email, and I'm at home on a weekend, I go to check it and it says error, and I come in on Monday and I have to spend 2 hours on the phone with Armand, getting my email up and running
Because
again.
somebody's webmail,
Because
You
people
know,
they
use
got
the
locked out.
stupid webmail.
No, something like that happened to somebody that's not on there like once, twice a month, I can understand, no big deal, but, I mean, your department head, and it's very, 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 very important that you have that available to you.
I really get
So-
important stuff.
In the
about it.
last month, we've had nothing but problems.
It's been
Why
horrible.
don't we change out the chiefs?
We can change everybody eventually, because he has Outlook. If we get the people that are using webmail, the $4 for a month or whatever, and get them off of that, he'll be okay.
Yeah, I have it in my office, which usually seems to be okay, but when I'm at home on my days off, I check my email on a regular basis, and half the time it's like, oh, error, and it's not working.
And that's because they're on a protected, being the police station, they're on a protected, so if like Officer McNeil goes to log in on the webmail and does it incorrectly, they're all locked out. Not just him, the whole police department.
That costs us
As a
more to have it
safety.
fixed, than it is to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Now, these 3 computers now have a new home for each department,
Yep,
correct?
yep, they'll each
And
have
they
a new
all
home.
need Word, Excel, all
I'm
the numbers
assuming
unpackaged.
that's pretty much all they're gonna do with it, is email and documents. Like the planning board will do minutes and Excel and books and forms
Right.
and you'll be doing email and on your, I mean, and the same thing, I mean, I can't imagine what else you do besides web-based stuff and internet and email. So, you know,
So,
Huh? What, me?
so,
What now?
yeah, I think so we budget for like that, so if you have the money in the line, just go ahead and just get it done and get them out there being used. Utilized.
yes.
You agree, John?
I'm
I
fine.
mean, we've already paid for the equipment to get utilized.
So this is lease for now, and then next year, or the year after.
We'll budget.
If it's a
See what we
month-to-month
can
contract,
do.
and, okay, give us a,
Breathing space.
I know that Armand also, just so we're talking technology, they said something, and like I said, I'm not a tech guru, so if anybody here understands, our firewalls are gonna be non-existent at the end of the year,
Why?
cause we had a 3-year, I don't know, it was before me, I guess we had a 3-year contract,
This Barracuda,
so it's
is it
no,
Barracuda?
I have no idea. Cause I've never had to deal with it, cause it was before my time that the contract was,
well, it's not now.
so.
I think it's Barracuda.
So that's gonna expire, so we need to think of,
What do you
and I don't
do
know
it?
what that cost, or, just so you know.
Yeah,
So
John,
that's
your
coming.
point earlier, computers make our life a whole lot easier.
You,
They don't.
if I may,
Sure.
you need to have a firewall,
Oh, yeah,
because,
absolutely.
Milton had, this goes last year, and they got hit with, the hacker that comes in and bribes you to open up all your files. Now, they got out of it, but your internet supplier, is it still Bay Ring? Is that who you go
Yes.
through? Then, or whatever they're called now? You should go to them and say, what's our firewall?
Yeah.
And, cause I've been out of the planning board, when I was up there, I used to get notices from, I could go in, I didn't know the password, but you go, Barracuda says you had so many, incidences, if you will, try to come in. So I'm sure, I bet it's Barracuda, and through
Favorite.
whatever they're called now, yeah, I would go to them and
Something
say,
like Harbor Light or something like that now, isn't it?
yeah, it's
First Light.
changed a couple times, so I would call them and say, okay, what's your firewall here? And then for your servers, you should also have firewalls, and what's the name of the computer company?
Armand?
Amon, they should be able to set you up with a firewall within each, well, within your server, but with each system, as long as they don't conflict. You have to be careful they don't conflict.
Right, and
That
I think
would-
that they'll probably do that, but I'm just saying, I don't know what the cost is gonna be, and he's researching to give me some numbers and stuff.
Okay, well, if you look at the Bay Ring bill, you know what's gonna cost you.
Yeah,
Okay. Do that.
that would be my
Yeah,
suggestion.
10%.
Not cheap, so.
Well,
But unfortunately, the cost of doing business, we want computers, so.
you wanna be safe.
Yep, absolutely.
And we have 2, I guess, we have one for the police and one for up here,
Right.
and all the rest.
Yeah, the
Just
police
so you know.
department's federally required
To
for
have their own.
the CGIS and all this stuff like that. It's gotta have certain requirements and firewalls.
Okay, we're gonna move into the highway bid project, we're gonna table it until John gets back, till the 27th. The neighborhood ordinance, we're gonna table that one as well, so this kinda in a way affects him, the landlord. The junkyard update, we're gonna talk about that, or?
Sure.
I know that several weeks ago, John Mamone, John Hotchkiss, and myself went down to the Tufts garage like that, because they were supposed to be removing all the excess vehicles there, scrap materials. They don't have a junkyard permit. For the most part, I'd say probably a good 85–90% of that stuff is gone, but there's a large, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, mountain of tires, probably close to several 4,000 or 5,000. Guessing? A lot of them. We talked to Keith Tufts down there about the tires, and he was working on getting a recycling company to come up there with dumpsters to take those. And as of this point, we haven't heard any word whether that's happened or not. So, that's the update for that. So, now that John Hotchkiss and myself felt very, very, very warm and fuzzy about the answer we got about that being accomplished before winter. So, I think what we need to do is, at this point, we sent them a letter stating that we gave them a couple of extensions to get the stuff done. They were working on it, so we helped them out, but based on the visit and the conversation with Keith about this not maybe being done soon enough as we wanted, that possibly that we might want to go and impose the next step of what we sent the letter on, that if you don't get it done, it's $100 a day per day until it's taken care of. Okay, that's the only other thing we have. We've talked with them. We've gave them 2 to 3 extensions at this point, and we were assured that stuff would be taken care of, but now it's not assured. So, you know, I hate to hurt anybody financially, but it's what's good for one's good for everybody. We have to not be impartial about it. So,
And John hasn't heard that, right?
John. John, have you heard any updates other than what I've said?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so. When John Hotchkiss gets back, we'll have another talk about this to see what we're going to do about sending and saying, listen, you know, we've done this, we appreciate it, but you haven't met the letter of what we wanted to get taken care of, and until you do, you're going to be, you know, imposed $100 per day until it's taken care of. Yes.
Does the town have the authority to go and hire somebody to remove the tires in the building for it?
No, it's private property. And I would like to think that if we did pay for it, the taxpayer paid for it, we never got reimbursed, and why would we want to do that? I don't want them, that's a good question, but I mean, no, if we own the property, we would probably have to do it.
Right.
No, that's a multi-owned piece of property at this point. So, the multi-owners
Oh, okay.
will not be happy with this letter.
Charge
So,
each one of them.
but that's what it's probably gonna end up being, and the longer it drags on, the more it's gonna cost. And we don't want, like I said, it's not what we wanna do, but if we don't do something, then what's the sense even talking about it?
Sure.
So that's the update with that, so. Now, other concerns with vehicles, what's this about?
This is the other,
Oh,
Car
yeah,
lots
okay,
and
okay,
I don't know
yeah,
what else to
I
call
kinda missed, okay, I lost. We, as well, have several other places in town that we need to be doing the same place with, okay? I know, John, your plate's probably pretty full with stuff going on, but we need you to look at, Pleasant Valley Road on the corner of 153. What's the name of the people?
Mitchell.
Mitchell's, okay? It seems every time you go by this, one more being added, and he also has his own vehicle to tow him in. I saw a ramp truck in his yard yesterday. So, if we can have you take a look at that, or...
Is there an update on Pleasant, on that property?
The property, I go by there all the time, and I see plates on all the vehicles. Now, if somebody's got a plate on a vehicle, and the vehicle is registered, there's no number of vehicles that you can have in that yard. That I know of.
Okay.
I don't know of any law that says that you can't have 10, 15 vehicles if they're registered. then they belong to you. Do I go in
So
and,
how do we find that information out?
Was this last week, week before?
But if, I'm sorry, John, but if you don't own them, can you have them, like you were saying, if you have 15 vehicles in your yard, say 3 are registered to me, but 12 are registered to
if they
somebody
are
else?
registered,
No, I'm just asking the question, because you said,
then they're paying tax somewhere
okay.
for having that vehicle registered.
No, I agree, I just didn't know what
So-
if there was a stipulation or not.
Your walkthrough on the property, was that last week, the week before, last month? How long ago was all vehicles registered?
Well, I don't get out and check the registrations on the vehicles.
Okay.
If I see a plate on it, you know, then I leave it alone. If you want me to go and start inspecting registrations and things,
What's the legal? But-
is that my
No, I
jurisdiction?
want to find out.
As far as I know from the towns that I've worked at, it's based on the town ordinance. A lot of towns that I've worked at had like no more than 3 unregistered vehicles on your property. But like you said, if they're registered, but a plate being on a vehicle isn't registered, but it's not his job to also check registration.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those,
It's a gray area.
yeah, if they have plates on them, they appear to be registered. You can't really walk on his property to see if they are or not.
Wouldn't it quick for us to see if they have the inspection stickers be somewhat of an indication?
No, because you can register a vehicle and not have it inspected. People do it all the time.
No, the little tag you put on, like for June of 18 or whatever, you know, that would say it's a current registered vehicle. Anything older than that would not be a current registered vehicle.
You could go by that, but I mean, it depends on the month, and if you get into having to use binoculars to look at it, now I'm saying, like, they literally have case laws saying.
I was gonna say that the town should buy some big eyes.
You're really not supposed to, they consider that an invasion of privacy if you're using some kind of a mechanical device to see things better than.
So we kind of start
with a drone. Yeah.
This
no
code
drone.
enforcement, he can't
Big
go
eyes.
up with the thing that there's too many vehicles? I mean, isn't that part of his,
I don't know anything about code enforcement, I
Job?
really don't.
you would think he has some authority, I mean, otherwise you can't go anywhere. So that means you couldn't walk tough, you know what I mean? Like you have
As
to
long
have
as you're
some
invited, you're okay.
But you have to have some jurisdiction of the code enforcement. How does he enforce the code if he can't go over there and look? Like if somebody's septic is overflowing, he can't go on there and see? So he's gonna have some
I would
authority
assume,
somewhere.
yeah, I would assume. And obviously the
Maybe.
laws are different for code enforcement than they are for police, so.
I mean, John, I'll offer to join you to look at the vehicles at your convenience.
Was he running a business out there?
Would you like me to go over and check and make sure that each one is registered to date?
Yes, and I'm willing to join you. I can do it tomorrow, I can do it Wednesday.
I mean, the thing, if he's legal and we can't do anything about it, it's one thing, but if it's becoming another situation, we need to find out about it now and take care of it. That's all. I mean, we're putting a lot of emphasis on fines for people and stuff like that. We can't do it, take care of other things.
I just wanna make sure that I'm on legal grounds, that's all I wanna make sure of.
Well, if you
I
look
don't wanna
at,
be,
if you look
you
at,
know,
if you look at the state RSA for code enforcement, it'll tell you in there what you're allowed to do and not do. It's the RSA though, from the state. It tells you what. Joanne,
What's the town requirements for unregistered vehicles? What's-
3.
So, no more than 3, right?
Right.
Up to 3.
no more than 2, right?
No.
I have no idea, I'm just repeating.
No more than
the
2.
question.
Is it
No
2?
more than 2.
2.
Code enforcement said 2.
And I know of several that are,
And I think the last one, we, at one point, was at the, what was, down at the bottom of the hill there, what's his name?
Mr. Fournier?
Fournier, we sent him a letter
It
as
was in
well.
2015.
And that's
It's
when he
never
was,
been followed up.
and that's when he was part of Wakefield, correct?
Mhm.
So since then, he's now in Middleton, he's our
I'm sorry?
confirmed. I walked the line, I know.
Oh, that whole property is in Middleton?
I would like to make comment.
Go ahead.
We talked about this way back then. We wrote them a letter. The state came out. I don't know, I was talking to Laura tonight. They came out to do a specific thing. They didn't do any more than just look for waste oil on the ground and thing. They weren't looking at anything else. Then I was kind of, now I'm not saying, I don't know who it was or how it happened or whatever, but we were waiting until the ordinance all got changed and put into the new form that we were going to get them updated. When that happened, it took a while to do, and things kind of leveled out and basically nothing happened.
Okay.
At this point, what would you like me to do in that one? Because the last letter that went to him in 15 told him he had 30 days to comply or respond.
Well, at that point in time, they had.
But at the time, we didn't, we were waiting for updates on the ordinances.
We have all the updates now.
We have them now.
So in lieu of that, now that we have new ordinance, probably just resend a new letter. Stating
I
the same
haven't
thing.
because we've had other situations and we keep talking about there are more and more and more things that we're gonna do. I would like to sit down with the selectmen and go over a letter that we need to compose to send to everybody that we think is in violation. What I have now is every situation gets a different letter. The ordinance is great, but it doesn't cover every situation exactly.
Okay, then what we'll do is we'll pick a date to get together, we'll take the ordinance, we'll draft a letter, and we'll make sure the attorneys are fine with it, and we'll use that as our,
And then we send it out to everybody who we think is violating that ordinance.
we'll talk to our attorneys and say, I think we should probably know, not think
Mhm.
they're in violation, we should know they're in violation.
Well,
I mean, every letter is going to
We'll
be
have a
different.
pretty good idea, that's for sure.
I mean, John, every letter is going to be different based on each action. One person selling vehicles, one person is towing vehicles, one person is storing vehicles, one person is fixing vehicles. Just tonight, I heard in the audience that there's other people doing the same thing. You know, our job is not to put anybody out of business.
Does the
but
ordinance cover every one of those situations?
the ordinance says, in this letter states, "It has come to my attention, you are running a business without a proper license." End of story. It's been since 2015, he's selling cars, there's no permits, there's nothing available. I know that there was issues in the past because it wasn't a resident of Middleton, it was a resident of Wakefield, that's been solved. State's been involved, they're looking at oil, that's fine. EPA restrictions are his own issue. Now it's an issue of permits. What have we done as a town with this one, this one, this one, and that one?
Okay, I showed something to Laura tonight. In 2015, he had a rental business for vehicles.
This person here?
Yes.
But he
Okay.
doesn't
But he
have,
has
Where did that
40
come?
unregistered cars, so how can you rent them?
it's vehicle, exactly, if they're unregistered, how can you rent them?
Show me a permit that
It's
you have
it's
in the rental.
registered with the state.
Show me that you have, I mean, and we can discuss this offline, and we can discuss this tomorrow. Show me the permit process that you have a license doing business as in the state of New Hampshire, that you are in the rental business, show me your vehicles. Again, it's not, I am not Mr. Policeman to tell you that you should be out of business, that's not my job. My job is when a concerned citizen brings it up to the board and says, this one, this one, this one, what are we doing as a town?
And if it's not being done legally, they got
I'll
stopped.
I'll show you the application and the letter from the state.
That's why I offered to go with you, not to put you in the hot seat, but I will go and support you to make sure that everyone's crossing their Ts and dotting their Is and everyone's on board with it. Joe and John went to one facility, I will gladly go to the next facility with you.
All right.
Again, I'm here for support.
We'll start making trips out there then.
Joanne.
Just as a suggestion, someplace as a starting point, perhaps drafting a letter to the effect that dear so-and-so, there has been a report of possible violation of some, then leave it blank, and with each separate situation, you fill in the zoning requirement that you feel he might be, and let them come in and prove to you that they are not in violation of it. That way you don't need to do any inspections of the properties. You'll cover whatever violation that they may be in conflict with. Just as a starting point, a suggestion of how to format something like that.
Yeah, well, I like it, so.
Let them prove to you that they're not doing what you think they might be doing.
Julian, you're absolutely right. It's not my responsibility or my approval or Joe's approval to speak on behalf of the state and say your screens are too big or too small when you dump oil, that
Yeah.
elements can get through the screen. That's not our job to detect that they're doing something correctly. Whether it's septic, whether it's water, whether it's waste heat, I mean, could be,
And they can come back with you from paperwork from the state that says they're approved.
that's all I'm looking for. A permit to operate a business as this.
Yeah, but there's a problem.
And
Don't you think you need a permit from the town to have that business before you get a permit
Yes.
from the state? That's the problem, you
That was
guys.
my
People
next,
register
that's
a
gonna be my next
business,
comment too.
Right,
But they
that's
also
happened.
have to be
That's what's
approved with
happened
this town.
everywhere.
They have that business.
they register with the state before they even go through the planning board to give permission to even be here. Then we gotta go ask backwards on everything to get it straightened out, and that's where we're at a lot of areas in this town. And one of them is referenced right down the street, so that's the same thing.
once again, putting the burden of proof on them to let them come in, rather than you having
They'll
to
never
inspect
come in
all
here.
these properties.
You chase them forever. We've been chasing this guy since 14, so, I mean, they don't come in here.
If they don't come in with proof, then you assume that they're in
Well,
violation.
with violation and with town council, we start charging $100 a day.
That's it.
And the $100 a day, it adds up after a year. People all wanna sell their houses.
If by such and such a date you don't come in with appropriate documentation showing that you're not in violation, then you will be assessed a fine for non-compliance with our requirement to.
See, the only thing I warn on that is there's actual statute that if the town is going after somebody, it's the town's burden of proof to prove that they're committing a violation, not vice versa. So you wouldn't send me a letter saying, Bill, you have to prove that you don't speed to work every day, and make me go, okay, let me go try to prove that now. You have to prove that I'm speeding to work every day. So I wouldn't just send out blanket letters to people saying, we think you're in violation, prove you're not. You know what I mean? You're supposed to have the code enforcement guy, the police department, the fire department go down and say, based on my opinion, they're in violation, and then they can defend themselves, but not prove themselves innocent.
Maybe you can get an opinion from the attorney about that.
I'm sure they'll help so. Cool. No. No, I just think to myself that, look, we pay, we should.
And I'm saying that's a slippery slope, then you could be like, well, prove your wells in compliance, prove your septic systems in compliance.
Well, the biggest thing is we don't want every yard in town of Midland to look like becoming a junkyard.
Right.
And it seems like every time you turn
So
around, it's
level up.
becoming more, you know, and
Dumping ground and junkyard.
so.
Trailer park, RV camping, you got it all here in this town.
Speaking of which, is there any kind of town requirement that when people put things out for weekly pickup, and they're not picked up, and they sit there and sit there and sit there, is there some kind of recourse for the town on that?
Did you hear her question?
I did.
If somebody leaves their trash on the curb and it doesn't get picked up, is there something that we could do about that? Isn't that littering?
It's on their own property.
If I have
Curbside?
taken people to task that leave their trash barrels or waste on the side of the road and it's scattered, I have contacted them, and everyone I've talked to so far has corrected it. But if you see somebody, you have to let me know, because I don't drive the roads every day.
Take a 1 mile ride down
Towards
Kings
Wolf-
Highway towards Wolfboro. Two places within 200 feet of each other, piled up right on the edge of the
Been sitting
road,
there for a month.
sitting there
They'll
for,
probably effectively be the bulk pickup that they can take it.
no, it's trash,
Is it trash?
trash. It's just a pile of junk and trash and stuff.
Sometimes what happens when tenants leave or a seller leaves, they empty the dwelling.
Yeah.
And they stick it all out there. There are communities within New Hampshire and cities that have ordinances that you can't do that. You must get it out of there. You're not allowed to do that. So, you know, trash, receptacles and so forth can be a safety hazard if they're left in the road. They can be a health hazard if trash is left out there a certain amount of time. Now, on my road down here, we didn't get pickup one week because of the paving scenario. But that was certainly acceptable.
Not to everybody.
And a storm.
Well, no, it was, yeah, the rain and everything else, but regardless, you know, you can do a trash ordinance that you could make it so complicated to cover every situation that I don't know if you want to go that way, but you can. So.
There's been a pink kids swimming pool out on Silver Street for at least 2 months now.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of glass right there, broke
Is that metal?
No,
Plastic.
all those plastic
Plastic?
swimming pools.
Metal, I'll pick it up. I'll go up to the metal place and get money for it.
No, it's one of those little plastic ones.
You in competition with the other guy that's running?
All right.
It could be.
I guess we're gonna move into the next item of new business, if there's no more old business. Okay, department heads, we can start with, we'll go with,
Give John so he can go home.
who?
Give John so he can go home.
Mr. Mamone.
Things have been relatively quiet. Had some permits and another solar permit tonight. I've actually been kind of busy myself, so I really haven't had a lot of time to spend here at the office, but I usually take care of the phone calls when people call me for inspections and things like that, so I haven't had any repercussions, so it seems to be working okay.
All right. Cool. Rick?
Well, I already updated you on the salt shed part, so we're already ahead of the game on that.
Sorry, what were you?
We had about a dozen hazard trees that were hanging up and other trees that were beside the roads that they definitely would have fell into the road if we'd had another windstorm, which we did have one over the weekend. We had more wind. And I reached out to Burke's Tree Service. They're already contracted to do all the other, still the pruning and stuff. And they were nice enough to come into town like ASAP, and all them trees were cleaned up before this weekend. When the wind started to blow. I know down here on the Ridge Road, we'd have had a road closure by the bridge, because one tree was hung up into a tree that was deader than it was, you know what I mean? There's only one they got left, and that's down on the Ridge Road up towards, up on top of the hill by, I can't never remember their name, but down by the old top paper house down there. There's one that they gotta use the crane on, that they haven't got. So all the hazard trees that we've seen that was down during the storm at this time are down on the ground, so they won't fall into the road or hurt anyone by surprise. The pavement's done down there in the Shore Drive area, Allen Way area. We still got some work to do down there. The shoulder graveling isn't there yet. That may be there next week, hopefully. What we're doing now is we're tying in all the driveways prior to them coming in, because there's some pretty good lips coming out of the driveways down there. We had a couple people call over the weekend, but just hadn't got there yet, and we got like 3/4 of them done today. We should be able to finish them tomorrow. School signs, scheduled to put the post in Wednesday, and we're gonna put the sign on. I'm not sure if Jeff Jacobs is coming in Wednesday after we do that. I'm gonna give him a phone call, or he may be here Thursday. He has to come in and put the pieces on the top, and I don't know who's gonna be in charge, but he needs to sit down with someone that's gonna be programmed, and he believes that he's got it figured that you can program that thing out 2 years. But there's gonna be some difficulty in that. Obviously, I guess you're gonna be the one. in conjunction with the school. Obviously, when you delay school, you may be able to change the sign. If you cancel school, I don't know if anybody's gonna be in time to not make the sign blink. You know, you got vacations that should be able to be planned in there, so like on Thanksgiving, it's not down there blinking, so. That's the only thing that you gonna tell, I guess, you. He'll show you all he learned about it. But it sounds like you physically need to go out to the sign on a ladder to work
See,
on
I
this.
thought
And
we were
plug in a
purchasing,
USB cord.
I thought
Right.
we were purchasing something that could be done remotely.
What you thought
I have
is
no
not what you
idea.
got.
Yeah.
So,
But you can do 2 years. I
You
mean,
can-
like
yeah.
snow day, I mean, it'll just blink. It is what it is, but you can get the calendar and you do
You
it
can
on
look-
like a thumb drive and then you go take that out there and plug it into the.
But you can work with the school and get all those dates
Yeah,
and stuff
I
like
got
that.
most of them
Works.
already.
Okay,
yeah.
that's a help.
And the only other thing is the Kings Highway pit, that brush job, the chipping job up there, that's all done. He's got all the chips out of there, everything is all opened up down the bottom. Butch may be in there next week and start doing the relocating down into the road. We're hoping we're gonna be able to finish it all this year, depending on the weather. But that's just up in the air, we're not sure, but he's scheduled to get in there next week to start doing the second phase of that project that we started up there. Other than that, that's about all I got. My budget's in. I gotta thank Laura again for helping me out on that, but it's, you got it, so it's on from here.
Thank you, appreciate it. Roger, planning board?
Planning board, we discussed one thing already. We banged that one around. The CIP, we finally signed that the other night. You still gotta get your ex officio signature on. But it was all signed and it's legal and everything else, so the CIP should be all set.
Cool.
We got
That's been a work in progress.
yeah,
Yeah.
we,
Holy moly.
update the, master plan now, which shouldn't take much because it's over there. We'll just pull it out one day, do a workshop, go through the master plan. What else is going on with zoning? I mean, planning. Not too much. I got a question though for you guys. Remember we had discussed about that ramp down there at the public beach? At one time,
Somebody wanted to put a ramp in down there?
no, the public ramp
Okay.
that was not conducive to driving back in there. There was some rock and stuff like that for tearing up trailers and vehicles going in there. And John said he would check with the state to see what we had to do to get that redone.
The boat launch?
The boat launch, yeah. The public boat
Yeah.
launch. So, I'd like to know where he is on that project, if that's something. While I'm still talking, might as well bring up the tower. There ain't nothing in there on tower. So, myself, Joanne and Tony and John met with the coordinator from the state,
John Stevens.
John Stevens, very, very nice guy, got a heck of a background. Yeah, don't even ask me to say who he is. Read his title.
I can't say anything.
Nope.
Read his title.
Interoperability or something, we
Yeah.
yeah. Prop for something.
What happened? Statewide interoperability coordinator.
But anyways, he's the head bucky and chief bottle washer for this network they're trying to get through the whole country, not just New Hampshire, on safety for police, fire, and EMSs, so that if anybody goes from one state to another, they'll have the same capability of being able to get on their channels, the same channels. You won't have to go. And that would be a dedicated to units to you type of people, you know, the police and fire and all those things. So that's the one thing, but the towers going up does not mean that we cannot at that time have people come on and put their things on the towers. There are two companies right now that are vying for the to do this work. One company can guarantee, what, 98% of the state, what's that, John?
There's only one, they're looking at AT&T,
No, they were looking at that other one too.
and then their backup plan, should the governor fail to pass it, the backup company, I think it's next one, will provide the whole state of New Hampshire with area coverage,
Right.
only for police, fire, EMS, and that's what the whole thing is about.
Then we won't have to, the towns will not have to worry about paying for that.
I believe you're looking at a $750,000 to put the tower up that they will be responsible for.
Yeah. But if we have the towers come in, the tower company, and Joanne and myself are gonna call our tower company here and say, I think it would be a good idea you guys to come down and put your towers in, because the state are looking for a place to put these things. So, and also Joanne and I have to, the first of the year, go over to Durham and get their blessing while putting the tower up. So I am dealing hand in hand with this guy. We are one of the first ones to jump on this thing.
He was adamant in assuring us that the state is very, very anxious to implement a program as a recommendation that came out of the 9/11 incident of the towers going down. They recommended this communication system to be nationwide. And as there is such an emphasis on getting this done, he anticipates that within 3 to 5 years, the entire state of New Hampshire will have a communication system that will satisfy not only the emergency personnel, but a very large portion, if not all, of the entire civilian population as well.
So again, I'm working hand in hand with him. When we shook hands, when he left here, he's gonna keep me informed, I'm gonna keep him informed. The governor has till December the 26th to make his mind up between the two. Actually, there's three ways he can opt out of this plan altogether, or he can go with one of these two companies. It's in the governor's hands. He felt that he thought maybe the governor might be acting on a little bit earlier. He wasn't positive, but he would keep me up to date on that too.
He also said that whatever the governor did decide, that he would probably have a representative from the accepted plan come to speak with us, meaning the selectmen and interested parties, sometime shortly after the first of the year.
Yes.
So that's, I would be very reluctant to hold him to that promise, but once again, the state is adamant about implementing a program, and since the governor must make a decision before the end of the year, he anticipates that the companies, whichever one is selected, is going to be very anxious to meet with communities that have a step up in the program. The fact that we handed him the 40-plus pages of petitions, which he will deliver to the governor, and also make sure that the selected company is aware of the petitions. I think that gives Middleton a little bit of an edge on the situation.
Rick, you had your hand up first?
Yeah, Roger started off by saying it's fire and EMT and all that related, and everybody's gonna be able to be on the same channel. That sounds to me like it's more like radio communication, not cell phone communication.
Right.
Because you're not gonna do your command on a cell phone, you're gonna do it on a radio. Is this geared more towards that, and are you gonna be able to put, like, say another company comes in here and wants to put something on that tower, even though the state funded it, are they still gonna allow them to
Yeah.
put that on that tower, and we get to have the rental on that tower?
What I asked him straight out was, I told him the tower company we have. And I said, we have a contract. And in that contract, we're allotted so much per month on that contract. He says that changes nothing on that contract.
So we can get anybody to put anything they want on that tower,
Right.
even though that
So
they're gearing it
That's
towards
why
you guys.
Joanne and I think it's worth calling, even though this company has not done a damn thing, if I can use that word, since we've started with them, only Joanne and I have done the legwork on this thing, that, tell them it would behoove them to get their towers up.
Well, like Laura, I have to admit that I'm no techno geek by any stretch of anybody's imagination. But the way I understood the program is that whatever company is chosen, there will be options for in one program, the police and emergency personnel will have free access to this communication system, and others would be subscribers. In other words, civilian population could subscribe to this system. The other program that is an option for the governor to choose would be that the system would go up, and then everyone, including any city or town entities, would subscribe to it just as you would to AT&T or whatever. So whether it's radio or cell communications, I really can't address that situation, but what I understood,
Just radio, right?
it would be.
Right, I talked with
it would be
John.
communication.
Oh, you did talk to
I
him?
talked with him yesterday
Yeah.
or today, about that, and there's two different technologies that they're looking at. The first one that they're concerned with the most is the radio communications, and I forgot what the acronym for it is. And then after that will be cell phone coverage, but at least they're talking more about radio coverage to make sure that no matter where we go, it's gonna remain the same.
I do know that regardless, even in the contract that we got right now with that cell phone tower people, I believe there's a stipulation in there that the town would have the option of being able to have a repeater put on that tower at no charge. That would boost our power, would be on a repeater like New Durham Highway and stuff out through Stratford Dispatch. And that is in that contract, I remember that.
We
being
also
mentioned.
had school involved, with the bus like that going to war.
Correct.
We needed that communication as
And
well.
that's why he wanted all that stuff to go to the governor that we had
good.
gone out.
And he's not talking about repeaters for anything, he just wants to get
Right.
this one system going.
But we'll still be able to, if we wanted to, we'd still be able to use some of the space on the tower. You're not giving, just not this one, you're not giving up the whole tower. if we
No,
don't-
this will
know what I
all be, there'll be more than enough room up there for everything.
That's all.
I know there's room, but your contract, where your contracts are gonna read, and the way the state's gonna come in and give you money on this, I just wanna make sure that we're not gonna lose any options on it, you know what I'm saying?
The state will come in and let's say, they say, okay, this is where we wanna put a tower down here. What you've done already is where we wanna put those towers. They will have these companies who come in and put the towers up. Okay, so that's, the state won't put them up, but the state's paying to have those towers. Actually, it's the federal government paying for that.
Yeah.
For
There-
those.
There's,
And they, okay. And they also said that the engineers of AT&T and the engineers of the other company probably already have this whole Lakes region, Middleton, Wakefield, all the way up to Canada. They know all the areas that they probably wanna put the antennas already, because of drop calls, loss of signals, everything else like that. And the only thing that I caution is there might be a cost depending upon the plan, because of rent that the town would have to use their airwaves. Is that,
Well, it was not for EMS. It was not for them, it was for the civilians, but if we worked our own thing into the tower company, where the tower company's paying us, then we don't have to pay for it.
Just a note for everybody, there was a quick summary of that whole program in Sunday's Union Leader describing the options that the governor is looking at and the dilemma that he is under to make that decision. Whether to not take federal funds and try to go with the state, which then the federal government is playing hardball, and they'll say, well, if you don't go with us, we're gonna have heavy fines.
Yeah.
So if you wanna just get a good summary of the program, it's in Sunday's Union Leader.
But he feels in 3 to 5 years, if not sooner.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Getting close to 8:30. Getting close to 8:30, so, Chief Lawrence,
Yeah.
get the best for last. I wanna know, do you speed?
I'll prove it, I don't.
Only with the blue lights. Update on what we've got for equipment with mileage and hours, calls, fire department's up to 98 calls, EMS is at 96. Notable events, we had a structure fire over the weekend on Saturday. It was a basement fire, mutual aid came, and put a good, quick stop to something that could have been something a lot worse. So that went well. While we were at the station, cleaning up, getting everything ready, a guy came in and reported his brother was lost over on Webster Road. So he had been out in the woods for a little while, we couldn't find him.
I guess
So-
that'd be lost, I only knew where Webster Road is.
Under Durham Road, second yellow gate on the right.
Oh, that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I go hunting, that's easy.
So, just a few months ago, we purchased 2 new GPS units for the purpose, for in case someone gets lost. So by the time Fish and Game had come, working with PD, working with us, we had already had his cell phone pinged, his latitude and longitude, was able to punch it in the GPSs. Fish and Game came up and he goes, boy, he goes, you wouldn't happen to have the Latin lawn on you, do you? And I'm like, yeah, literally I do, because I wrote it right on the back of my hand. And he goes, wow, what about one of those GPS units? I reached out in my pocket, I was like, this one? He goes, yeah, just like that. He punches it in, he goes, well, he goes, it's about 400 yards from here. And there's 2 roads, and he goes, wow, he goes, well, if we go that way, and if we had a second GPS, we could go that way with it. And Scotty Bowden goes, you mean like this one? And he goes, just like that, punches it in. They were able to find him, got him out of the woods. So that was a busy day. That was a busy day. But 2 good we haven't had a structure fire in a long time. And to have that lost hunter go out in the woods, and everything was working seamlessly. We had EMS there, we had fire, we had the equipment, the mule was ready. Technically, the call was in New Durham. We had one of their members there as a representative, but it all went well. So, busy weekend, but it was good. We've got the turkey raffle coming up this weekend, so that's always a good time. We're looking at having Jake Bordeaux, who was the acting chief, or was the chief here for a little while. He's a deputy chief over in Milton. He's looking to join back up here again with us, so he's gonna bring a lot of experience with him. Yep, talked with the guy about the cell tower. I'd like to purchase some lights for engine 1, the main light bar. We were noticing the other night during the rainstorm and the wind, it was cutting in and out. Also, it was hard to see the engine, believe it or not, if you were coming up to the sides. So one of the things that Jake Bordeaux does is he runs Eastern Boats, but he's also was a part owner in the fire apparatus company that we bought Engine 5 from. He's suggesting that we go with a new LED light bar for the front, some markers for the sides of it, because there really isn't much to light the side, and then as an option to include a traffic bar on the back of Engine 1. So when we were doing lines down, we can either have it flashing, we can have it going to the left, we can have it going to the right, so people ahead of time can start going in different directions. And he's installing, so that's a proposal. But he's also be willing to install everything for nothing. Labor for nothing. And they do this at the fire truck company that he works with and Eastern Boat, which is a pretty large boat company. So he's given us a deal on everything.
So the base price is $15.15, and if you want the options, you just add that to that price.
Correct.
So if you want all three options, it'd be another $900, so it'd be
Right.
about $2,500, not a lot.
There's been some people that have done work on engine one in the past, on the weekends, and taken lights off the side of the truck, I don't know why. And, yeah,
Is
it's,
that why there's a sticker on this, on the top hood?
yeah, exactly. They took out two lights and put stickers over the holes.
I heard that.
Yeah.
All right, what's your budget look like?
I'll give it back here.
I mean, this is crazy. I mean, all the stuff we have to spend money on is already spent one time, because people just wanna do what they wanna do.
And that's why I've never been, that's why I would rather, well, the light bar in engine one is cutting in and out. It's original with the truck.
Okay, okay.
But the other stuff, other people have done it.
Fire budget.
In vehicle maintenance, I still have $5,000 in there.
Do you have any other stuff that's coming in for maintenance towards the end of the year that's normally done once a year, like pumps and all that kind of stuff like that, or no?
The only thing that we have to do at some point is get the command car down to
On-speed or whatever?
a two-way communication, have them take a look at the whole back where there's other, that's your command center. Like with the structure fire the other day, I couldn't run it because the radios in the back were dead. Once again, someone brought it to somebody up, way up north, had them do it in their backyard.
Oh, 570, yeah.
And I've got no place to go as a recourse.
You don't have any new equipment in your budget? Would this be new equipment for the
No,
library?
no, it's just repairs.
Oh. Well, I'm trying to find you another budget.
So for $2,410, we can get the whole thing done.
The only line item that I see is vehicle maintenance.
Right. Which has got 57.
57. Because your radio repairs and equipment, you're buying a new radio for that.
Right. But this is lighting, so that's to get the repairs done on engine one.
So that'll give you a balance of $3,290 to the end of the year to do something. So. Again, it's part of your maintenance, stuff like that. We need the vehicle safe, we need to have them operating the right way. So, I don't see where we have much of a choice. I mean, it's no different than when you had to put something on a highway truck like that, or a police cruiser. We gotta do it, we have to do it. I mean, they have to be safe, and we can't, I mean, one problem with the liability on us for not doing it, it's gonna cost a heck of a lot more than $2,400.
It's just trying to make it.
So last meeting you were repairing something on the rescue for $1,200.
He's looking into a light for that.
I just didn't want you to go over
Right.
from the
Oh,
same line.
the scene light in the
The
back.
scene light in the back.
Yeah, because I tried putting that on, and it doesn't work.
Right.
So,
I mean, you guys want to go with them.
so how much is that?
He's working,
That was $1,200.
we think,
1,200 roughly, roughly.
but Jake is trying to get us one.
But then
LEDs, of
also
course.
last month, just to give you a heads up, to remind her about bunker gear too.
Right.
Okay.
Where's that coming from?
Uniforms? Is that fire?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Is this
The
all
last,
fire?
yeah, this
Okay.
thing, sorry, my line's not right.
I just wanna make sure you had enough for
Yeah.
bunker
Twenty.
gear.
Right, right.
It goes here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if it's in your budget to do so, I mean, yeah, thanks for the heads up. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think we need to raise the fact that anything over $250, you have to come to us.
That's on my list, honestly.
If you have to have that in writing for the auditor, if you do that, you have to have it like actual dollars signed, right, yeah, just so you know.
I think we should probably do that and raise it to at least at least 500 minimum. you know,
$1,000.
Or 1,000.
Rick can't buy a tire for less than $1,000.
No, and again, I mean.
I gotta buy salt, I can't come in and get
My
pre
biggest
approval, I
thing is
just
you
get a
have
pre approval
department
for the
heads, stuff like
season,
that, you
so.
trust your department head to do the
Works
job
for
right,
me.
that's what you're hiring for, so don't tie their hands.
You received your budget in your mailbox? Okay.
So, alright, so let's move.
Oh, can, update on the access to the fire department?
Yeah.
What's going on with the access controls?
Okay. Oh, you're asking us?
Yeah.
Hotchkiss said to put it in the budget folder to talk about putting it in the budget.
For
The
next-
big quotes, that's what he said.
For next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so, Linda, do you want to say anything on behalf of the school or no?
Well, that's why I'm here, but I wasn't able to attend the school board meeting this week, last week, but we're about halfway through on our policies.
Is that your budget? Is your budget, is
I'm
Just curious.
not the budget
No.
rep.
okay.
The budget process for the school is Governor Wentworth
Yeah,
sits
Yeah,
down with
they
our
work on it.
people and they come up with the budget, and as a result of that number being sent to the DRA or whatever, the tax rate has dropped at $9.21 per thousand.
no, but it'll be available when you go through the rest of the, when we go through the rest of the budget.
It's a separate
Yeah.
deliberative session and
But
everything.
the budget
Yeah.
committee will have access to that,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
That's my.
Absolutely, because that's what your job
Oh,
is.
yes,
Yes.
You have both ours and theirs.
Right,
so.
right, and that's what I was just
Yeah.
circling back to.
Do you know anything about the presentation that the students did that night?
Oh, no, I wasn't there. Sorry.
Alright, so, we wanna go into, anybody else before we get to chief? Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Wait a second, I got one.
You got one more?
Alright, cool. So while we're on it, I had it on my list to talk about the requested approval for things over 250. Like I said, there's not a lot I can do.
My recommendation would be for everybody but the police chief. He likes to spend money.
So I had a conversation with Laura the other day, and we were just saying, I guess to make it official, it has to be properly documented. So I don't know what the fire chief or Rick thinks, but I would like to see it closer to the 1,000 range. And there's a lot of stuff to do it for $700, $800 that I don't mind coming to you guys and asking, but I almost feel like it's burdensome on you that I have to keep coming to you and say, can I buy this if it's within my budget to do so. At some point, if you guys.
I don't know, I've been doing the same thing for 21 years, so if you're gonna change it, then I guess it'll be fine with me.
Well,
But
would $1,000 make it easier for you to do your job?
either way, I come here anyways.
Okay.
So, as far as the salt goes, that's one of the only things I don't come here and tell you I need a load of salt. I mean, I can't do that. I mean, I could, but then we'd be in a bind out there. But anything other than that, I don't have any problem.
Okay.
Because your contract with that, they sign the
Right.
contract, so.
Okay.
Whatever you, like I said, whatever you guys
I
decide.
don't get to see you guys during the week. So it's only on Mondays that I get that. Ask for things.
So I don't, keep within the legal limits of, So
Okay.
every-
But just in the meantime, anybody can submit a PO and they just see it. Like, you don't have to sit with them. Like, you've submitted POs and it's in writing and they just go through and you get it back, approved or whatever, just so you know, in the meantime.
Okay. Well, I don't like things to be more burdensome and more levels and stuff like that. I mean, it's a trust issue. If I don't trust you, you shouldn't be working here. So I have no problem with what you guys do, so. About the budgets, then stay within the budget. There's nothing we have to worry about, so. That's my personal feeling on what you guys think, but, So, alright, so that's one thing.
Alright, so at some point if you guys come up with a number that works for you, but while we're still under the 250, I'd like to purchase 2 TVs out of my own budget, flat screen for the wall for training, and I think it'll help make the police department look more professional and bring it up to date a little bit. I pay $800 a year for this Police One training, and there's a lot of really good functions in there where I could have 4 or 5 guys come in, sit down, watch a training video together, and get everybody credit for that training. But it's kind of hard when you're all huddled over a computer screen. Most departments nowadays, you go into them, they got, TVs on the wall that you can turn on the computer and watch the training on there. And so it'd be about $300 a piece for 2, skinnier TVs that go on the wall. I have it in my budget. No problem, if you guys don't mind if I purchase those 2.
No, I agree with,
Just checking.
You don't give me anything, you know? It's in your budget.
Alright.
I mean, yeah, it's for training, it's not just to sit and watch CNN or whatever.
I want one just to watch the Weather Channel, though. I need a flat screen over there.
You want one?
I should have one for the Weather Channel, right? I mean,
I use it for the news, I put the news on and stuff, I can't sit in quiet office.
I got an old tube one over there.
That's what I got mine
Still
on.
works?
Takes up the whole,
Walmart
half
has
the kitchen.
55 inch for $279.
These are good,
Well,
I mean,
bigger's
they don't know the
better.
computer you had over there.
That's right. Yeah, all antique stuff over there. Yeah,
Doubles as a museum, right?
probably costs more to run them too, I would imagine now, the old TVs compared to the new ones.
So, and then just quickly, so people know, like, just calls for service, we're up to 475, calls for service, 28 arrests, we're at 454 motor vehicle stops. They've written 47 tickets for the year, 14 motor vehicle accidents. As of last month.
Who's done the most vehicle stuff?
I'm gonna guess either Wade.
I'm afraid to go in my mind, Wade.
Our new guy Cooper has been stopping a lot of cars as well, but it's gonna take a little.
Oh, the new guy, he's just out meeting people. Blue lights.
Meet and greet.
No.
That's all I have.
Well, cool. Is there anything else from any of the department heads?
Yeah. I have Kathleen's, well, I have her September and October reports. I just need September, you don't really need that now. I have treasury reports. I have a welfare report.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, Laura, I forgot about the
I know, I'm just like
I've had
pushing
two.
aside.
Well, last
It's all
time you said
good.
nothing going on, so. Is there anything going on in welfare?
Yeah, I'm only at 35% of my budget, so I'm doing something.
Huh?
I've had 3 families this month alone, yeah.
Really?
October.
They all qualify?
Nope. That's why I'm at 35% of my budget.
Yeah, good to see you two gentlemen. Hope you're-
All right, and for the record, the town clerk has, for the 10/31, received $104,295.34 from everything she does. So,
Can I, talk about the bank statement? Outstanding checks. I know we spoke about it before, but maybe we can table it and talk to John or talk to, somebody about outstanding checks of 2015. We're in year 2017, almost coming up to 2018, and we have 3-year-old checks still on the books here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 checks from 2016. So, I mean, I just wanna see this cleaned up a little bit.
yeah, we have a process for doing that, and we should sit down and take care of it, get rid of them. I mean, our checks stay void after 90 days, correct? Yeah?
The problem is the bank cashes them though. That's what we ran into. When we voided a couple, the people went out and cashed both of them.
Yeah, but we as a town, or as, we don't need to void a check or stop payment on a check. If the bank accepts a check and it's 2 years old, and we dispute it, it's
The
their
bank's
dime.
responsibility.
Well, if they go to a person, they're supposed to be sent to the treasury to unclaimed money. Like you write a check to them that this is all outstanding, yeah. There is a process.
Yeah, because you see that thing in Massachusetts,
I think it's
1.4 million
cheated to the
people,
state.
whatever.
You send it to the treasury, yeah. There's a whole process. Then if it's like somebody that's still here, like say Chief Blodgett hasn't cashed a check, I'll be like, oh, I lost it, okay, I'll go and void it and give you a new one. Like stuff like that. But normally that money should be sent. Like there's one in there for that lady for $7.50. That's her
$7.50.
money, that needs to go to her, to the state and unclaimed.
Oh, if that's what we need to do, is do it.
That's your treasurer, just so you know. She has to, and I printed all that stuff 2 years ago,
All right,
so.
and
You're welcome.
you have your reconciliation for last month?
Mine's right
That's
there.
yours? Okay,
That's
we don't
mine.
have the treasurer's.
Yeah, hers is right there. I don't know what month it is, but she just gave it to me today. I didn't really look.
We have $79,000 in the ambulance revolving fund. Cool.
Then we have 30,000 that we should be moving at the end of this year as of right now. And then we also have 20, did I say 20 or 30? 30 more that should be in the capital reserve. So you're looking at, 80 and 60, and then 40.
We might be able to buy a new ambulance. So, that'd be cool. And again, on our bookkeeper, I reconciled difference is zero as it should be. This would be nothing out there. Treasurer's report is from October 17th. Oh, no, October 17th, but we're not sure the outstanding stuff. Okay.
Chief, on your report, details. Where were we this month compared to the month before? Are we still running high detail?
Yeah, we're still doing 3 a day for the most part, short of the weather. We're down there was a couple of weeks where they didn't work because they were up doing storm repair. But now we're back, we're doing 3 a day again.
And I know, that the last meeting, Rick spoke about, and the fire department spoke about the storm that we had. We had 23 calls that night. We were up all night. No one mentioned that you scheduled 2 people from 12 o'clock on. And I just want to say thank you, because having McNeil and having Burke on, it was great. I mean, the highway department assisted us, you guys, we all worked together the whole night. It was great. It was absolutely great.
So, credit's due, it was Doug Bovell's idea, but I said, please go ahead. I think it'd be a good idea to have the guys on as long as they're needed, so.
Yeah, they kept going back and forth.
Neil was under the ability when it slowed down, and he was there all night pretty much. So.
It didn't slow down. Trees kept falling.
Tell them to watch out for chickens.
I know.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you as
I'm glad, I personally, from my observation, I feel like everybody's working well in the town right now, so I like that. So,
I agree.
First time in a long time.
good. Keep it going.
And you're going to be able to work on?
All right, if there's nothing else, we make a motion to adjourn?
Thanks, Rick.
We're gonna do this, we
I
didn't do
second.
business
Oh,
for public participation,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just in case any.
Sorry.
Leaving, the public participation's leaving.
Anything on the public participation? Motion to adjourn then. What? Second. All in favor?